Well, good evening and welcome to Quincy Access Television's live coverage of Quincy Votes 2020, the presidential election. I'm Joe Catalano, joined by my colleague Mark Crosby in studio this evening. Mark, good to virtually see you across the studio.
I know, certainly a lot different than we have done in the past, although last time for the election we were actually totally remote. We were in different places altogether. At least this time we're coming closer together, though we're still not there. The guests tonight will join us remotely.
That's right, and we hope to chat this evening with candidates for Norfolk County Sheriff, for the Norfolk County Commissioner's seat, as well as the 8th District Congressional seat, State Senate seat, and various others as well. We look forward to that, as well as representation from both the Quincy Democratic and Republican city committees. So we look forward to giving you kind of a local flavor as to how this really will be a historic election will play out. The polls, of course, have just closed. And Mark, I know you were at the polls earlier today.
I was, and we will show that to folks in just a moment. But not as much activity out there today as you will see, but that was due in large part to early voting and voting by mail.
Right, I know City Clerk Nikki Crispo was saying something like at least 30,000 people requested mail-in ballots, and most of them did get returned via the U.S. mail. She's predicting a total turnout of 75% here in Quincy. That would be a record for total number of votes ever cast in the city of Quincy. So we'll have to wait and see how that pans out.
So we are going to the polls.
We're getting a steady stream of voters all day. There was a little line first thing this morning about 7 o'clock, and that lasted for a little bit. But we have just seen a steady stream of voters today. We anticipate a little pickup again at the dinner hour. We haven't had any issues, so to speak, just maybe like a jam or something like that, but we have some technicians that have been getting right out to the polling places and fixing those little issues. We did a 2 o'clock number, and we're at 20% across the city. We had almost 50% of our voters already vote, so we're looking at 70% now. We're anticipating 75 to 80% turnout today combined. And we should have those numbers, unofficial numbers, by probably about 9:30, 10 o'clock tonight. We have 3 days to get the mail votes back to us. As long as they're postmarked November 3rd, we'll count them up until the 6th. And then we still have provisional ballots to count and overseas ballots to count as well. As a result of this pandemic, it's made it different. So the options that we've had going forward with the early voting, the mail-in voting, and the voting in person have just given people the options to do what they feel comfortable doing. We did have 21,000 mail-in ballots. We had 8,000 people vote in person. And like I said, 20% today. I'd like to say thank you, of course, to my staff in the election department and the poll workers, and for all their hard work, and to the administration and the mayor for giving us the resources that we needed today to be successful for the last month. We will have the results tomorrow morning on the City of Quincy website. We'll be giving the results to QATV this evening. The Quincy Sun will have the results as well.
I think the importance of voting is extraordinary because you have a voice. No matter how small you think you are, you do have a voice and an impact on what this nation or your local community can be.
I think you have a civic duty to vote.
Yeah, pretty much the same thing. Working together to solve problems rather than just fighting over abstractions, I think would be a good step in the right direction.
So there you have it. We were at the polls earlier. That was, of course, City Clerk Nicole Crispo. We did able to chat with a few voters as well. Well, going right to the interview part of our program right now, joining me is Representative Taki Chan. He is from the 2nd Norfolk District. He is unopposed. Representative Chan, thank you for joining us here at election night.
Well, thank you for having me here in the virtual format.
Yes, this is, of course, you're familiar with this format and Quincy Access Television's use of it. You have been doing quite a few programs
My
with
colleague, Joe Catalano.
Thank you for the opportunity to do that with Joe, and obviously I miss you in person. So it's great to actually see you and notice your hair is getting longer than mine.
I tried to get a haircut today, and because of schools being out, because of voting day, the barbershops were busy.
Yeah, I can imagine. I mean, people are trying to keep their business afloat any way they can. And yeah, I mean, you're right. People are trying to live their normal lives, and things are busy as best we can. So still, we're checking me in 2 months. My hair might be longer than yours.
We'll go for that record.
Absolutely.
What have you been out and about at the polls today to notice voter experiences, voter activity?
No, I've very much have done the stay out of people's way COVID instructions. I mean, as you can see from my various interviews and my hair poofing up because I can see myself now, you know, I've been very cautious because of issues at home, my mother and her health issues, and I get bronchitis and all kinds of illnesses when the winters hit. People who've actually dealt with me in the wintertime before. But I've heard from a number of folks out there that polls have been busier where they're close to polling places. So places like Squantum, for example, the polling place is closer to home, so there's a bit more activity. But I talked to Nikki Crispo about a week and a half ago, and you know, it was pretty high mail-in ballots already, early voting already, well into 30-40%. So not surprising. I expected a lower physical in-person turnout, but still, I hear it was very active based on people I've been talking to today.
Go ahead.
Go ahead,
Joe.
Do you think that had there not been a pandemic and had there not been such a contentious administration in Washington, that there would be such a high turnout, such a potentially historic turnout as there may be today?
Well, as I'm always reminded, what drives people out to vote is either anger or demand for change. So the inspiration to make something new, change, happen, or they're just mad. Those are the two big driving forces. So the combination of the Washington political climate, which no one can say is good, and the current COVID situation has definitely motivated folks, plus the racial issues over the summertime, obviously added to that component as well. And you look at the overall rate the years gone, I think I don't need to tell folks that I think people really need to have their voice heard. And through the expanded absentee voting system, that created an opportunity for people to take the time to look at the ballot, get a ballot, and get it back in. So this is one of those rare years where I tell people you can sit at your ballot for a full day and make a sound decision based on what you think is best.
As a representative, where do we stand with the state budget?
We have had conversations with the House Chairman of Ways and Means about the state budget. At this stage, we are looking at the ANF, Administration of Finance, projections of between 3.5 and 3.7 billion dollar deficit. Our rainy day funds at 3.5 billion. Obviously, we can't use all that at one time. So right now, we're doing an analysis of the different economists about where things are going. We expect to have a fairly bare bones budget in the sense that there won't be a whole lot of, as you said, pork added to the budget this year. So right now we're trying to prioritize our major programs. COVID-19 is at the forefront of our mind. We actually have a new kind of fixed cost this year, which is COVID-19, which is something we've never anticipated in the past or needed to in the past. And that's going to definitely impact how our projections go. And I'm sorry about the buzzing. It's my cell phone going off, which I will move my finger in place to disable the sound.
There we go. I didn't know where that was coming from.
The world of virtual has me move my hands all over the cell.
I know. It's different. It's certainly different. It's something we're all getting used to. I want to thank you for joining us tonight, and wish you well. Stay healthy. And we'll talk in the future.
Actually, be well and be safe, everyone.
Thank you, Tacky. Same to you. We do have Heather Hamilton next up during our coverage this evening. Heather, independent candidate for one of the 3 Norfolk County Commissioner seats, a select woman in the town of Brookline. And Ms. Hamilton, welcome to Quincy Access Television's coverage of election 2020. Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you for joining us this evening. Appreciate it. Tell us your experience out at the polls today, if you could.
It was very cold. I spent the majority of the morning in Franklin, and the wind chill was just off the charts. But we were in really good company. There was just a lot of turnout, a lot of energy. Met some really great candidates, a lot of their supporters, and we all suffered together. So. Misery loves company, and then we went to other parts of the county, Norfolk County. We went to Milton, we went to Medfield, we went to Braintree, and ended the day in Brookline. So I'm feeling pretty good.
Now, this is the first time you have run for public office, correct?
No, so
okay.
I am a select person.
Oh, correct. Yes.
And actually just won re-election this past spring.
Congratulations. I know what you wanted to bring to the county commissioner's office was accessibility and, basically visibility that you say is lacking.
Yes, so I had been on the select board for one of the largest towns in the Commonwealth, and certainly the largest town in the county, and I had never heard of the county commissioners. Part of that is on me, but part of that is on them as well. To my knowledge, none of them had ever reached out. There is an advisory board, which every select board is in charge of appointing the advisory member, to go to the Norfolk Advisory Board. But there's just a lot of confusion about what they do, how often they meet, and what they actually manage.
What will the county commissioners be charged with managing in regards to the pandemic? How will it impact the county seat, if you will, the county government, the county budget?
Well, it's funny that you bring that up. So the counties were actually given the opportunity to apply for CARES Act funding, and Norfolk County decided to acquiesce that responsibility, the oversight of the CARES Act funding, to the state. Meanwhile, Plymouth County decided to administer the grant funds directly to the towns, saying that they were in a better position to know where the money was needed the most. I'm very intrigued to get in there to find out whether or not I agree with Plymouth's stance, or whether I agree with the Norfolk County's stance in allowing the state to run that program.
Yeah, I would think revenues will be impacted, particularly at, say, the golf courses or the agricultural school, perhaps, due to the pandemic. So I'm sure you'll be looking at the numbers.
Yes, I'm very interested to get revenue actuals for the golf course in particular, because when I was looking at fiscal year 20 budget and fiscal year 21, it's not entirely clear that we have reliable revenue actuals since 2018. So I kind of want to know whether or not the golf course is revenue neutral, or if we have to, make some hard decisions now that budgets are really stressed.
Speaking of budgets, the county commissioner is in control of a $32 million budget. So that's a sizable amount, correct?
That is certainly sizable, especially when you realize that the 28 communities that comprise Norfolk County, the average amount that each community gives to the county is about $230,000 a year. That is real money that could be used, for any number of more localized programs. So I'm very interested to see where this money is going and whether or not I think it, should be spent at the local level or whether we should continue having Norfolk County government.
Well, I want to thank you, Ms. Hamilton, for joining us here tonight. And as we await results as they come in, certainly best of luck to you.
Thank you very much. I really am honored to have the privilege to be with you tonight.
Thank you. Thank you. And so do we. Thank you very much.
We want to welcome to our coverage this evening now an independent candidate for the 8th Congressional District, John Lott from Stoughton, is joining us on our live election coverage here at Quincy Access Television. So, Mr. Lott, good evening. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Thanks for having me.
It's our pleasure. We appreciate it very much. Talk a little bit about how you're feeling tonight now that the polls are closed and the campaign is essentially over.
Yeah, I am relieved, actually. It's very stressful, believe it, to wait at this high level. So I'm just thankful one way or the other that it's all over, more or less. We still have a few hours left, but...
I know one of the concerns that you've traveled all over the world, I believe, but one issue that you really feel quite, I guess, moved about and certainly would like to do something about, and that's climate change.
Absolutely. Thanks for letting me talk about this. Yeah, so I think climate change is by far the number one issue, but we got to think a lot of long term about what climate change means. I mean, we got to think about ocean acidification, about what drought, desertification, mass migrations, water wars. I think we're going to see in the next year, probably regardless of what the United States does, a war between Egypt and Ethiopia, and that's over a really big dam that Ethiopia built right near the border of Sudan. That has the potential to spiral out of control. India, Pakistan. I take water and food security very seriously. And honestly, people aren't really talking about nuclear war anymore, but I still think that's an existential risk that's on the table that people aren't really thinking about. And climate change is going to basically aggravate everything. We've already seen places like Iraq fall apart, not just because of climate change, but seriously impacted by because Turkey and Syria and various others are they're building dams and they're hoarding water, and that's really what the next 100 years are going to be about after oil is relegated to a second-tier commodity. At home, it's hard to unpack if you haven't really explored it at depth. So please go to my website, lot2020.com. It's not too late to educate yourself, even if it is too late to vote.
I know you had run in 2016 for the state senate. I believe that at that particular moment, and of course it's still going on, the opioid crisis was a concentration for you.
It absolutely was. And I still think that it is a problem, not just in Massachusetts, but broadly speaking around the whole country and even internationally. I think one thing that I learned really that grew on me in the years since is that the opioid epidemic is really one symptom of a much larger problem, I think, which is basically just the level of despair and hopelessness and pessimism about the future, not without cause, that a lot of people are facing that really I became more aware of. So I think it's really part of a much broader social, societal, mental illness. It's a very complex downstream issue from a lot of upstream important ones as well.
Curious, Mr. Lott, do you think that the outcome of this election this year will be a referendum on what this country feels in terms of importance with racial justice, with the economy, with climate change, with environmental policies going forward? Or do you think this is just kind of a blip in the road in terms of politics?
We'll see in the next few weeks and months, I think, whether it's hard for it to be a referendum on all of those things at once. So it's going to be I mean, it will certainly be very easy for, if the Democrats win, and I expect them to, for them to say that it was all of their issues that really brought people to the polls. But I think ultimately this election is going to be seen as a referendum on Donald Trump and why we should vote him out, or why not. I voted for Biden myself, but I think really it's going to be more about Trump than it is about any other policy, to be honest.
I want to thank you, Mr. Lott, for joining us here tonight, and good luck to you as numbers come in. Certainly taking the time out to chat with us, we do appreciate that.
Thank you very much, guys.
You're very welcome. Have a good evening.
Yes.
A name and a face and a voice that'll be familiar to a lot of folks here in Quincy and on the South Shore, and of course Norfolk County, is Joe Shea, former Quincy City Clerk, incumbent Norfolk County Commissioner right now, and is joining us virtually to say hello. Hi, Joe. How are you?
I'm great, Joe. How are you?
Sorry, we're trying to get...
That's all right. We see a little bit of you, Joe. We need to see a little more.
Okay, we have to... Just it's more of me, I guarantee you.
Yeah, tilt down. Yeah, I hope so. That's a lot better.
Okay.
Very good.
Very good.
Well, welcome, first of all. And being a candidate for re-election to this post, I know one of the top priorities, which basically is an ongoing priority, is modernization of the county commissioner's office, correct?
Correct. Correct. We've spent a lot of time and some money on getting into the 21st century, and it's proven out a success. I will tell you that some of this was spurred by COVID. We were forced into it, and it's here to stay. We publish our documents on the website, etc. And due to increased transparency, we've really brought ourselves into the 20th century, as I say, and it's the 21st century. But we also have commissioned an outside best practices study, and just hired a company last week that's going to, in the next 6 months, study every department in the county, study how the county raises fees, how the county pays its bills, and how the county operates. And we're very excited about it. And it'll be an independent third-party company that's done hundreds of studies in Massachusetts and in New England. So we're all excited about it. There is going to be at least one new county commissioner, and if I lose, there could be 2 new county commissioners. There's a new county treasurer. So, things are going to change, and we're trying to manage it as well as we can.
Real question, Joe, is are you happy you're not city clerk anymore, given what's going to be a very, very busy night at the polls and in the city clerk's offices across the state?
Yes and no. I've gotten over it. The bell rings, and I still wake up thinking about Ward 2, Precinct 3, and if they're going to open on time, etc. But I've been out 4 years now, and Nicole really does a great job. And this was really quite an exercise this year. I am done with this campaign, and I am done with the whole thing that started in January, and I'm very anxious to go forward. And I thrived on it, but let me tell you, we're very fortunate that the city embraced all these programs, and I don't think there are going to be any problems. And even some of it was new to me. I never worked an early voting election. I am familiar with how it works because they explained it to me, and I think the mail-in vote is here to stay, and I think early voting is here to stay. And I know this week that the city has got 63,700 voters, the most they ever had. And I still keep my eye on the federal census. I still do census work for the city, and I'm very excited about getting that number up where it really should be. And I believe it's over 100,000 population. I really do. But they do a great job there. And Nicole does a great job, as you know.
As we talk,
what she said.
Just going back to modernization, talk about, and the website, talk about the budget portal on the website, because that's new, correct?
That's new, and originally the totals were on there, but now all the backup information, everything is on the website. And Mike Mullen, who's the county director, county executive, was able to pull it together probably April, May, and this summer we really bought some new equipment and really got it going. But I think a new design of our whole website is coming as a result of it. But you can now get information on our website that was never there before. And say that during the campaign it was a bit of an issue with one of the candidates, but we already addressed it. And I'm telling you that, you know, some of it was forced by unfortunately the COVID and the Zoom meetings we had to have, and you know, I'm only one of three, and we do everything at the Zoom meeting, and it's changed us a lot, but we've adapted, and it's helped out, and it's here to stay. Not necessarily the Zoom meetings, but the better website, more information, the more transparency. Old habits die hard, but we're moving along, and we're very happy with it.
Well, Joe, it's been great to see you and talk with you, and we wish you the best this evening during the vote counting.
I mean, I'm sure I'll get 1 or 2 precincts from Quincy pretty soon. This is a big county. I think I'll probably go to bed without all the final results, but if I get 4 or 5 or 8 of the key places, I'm getting one right now. Oh, I'm getting it. Okay. I think we'll be in good shape. But I'm also worried nationally. I have other interests here, but we don't need to talk about them tonight.
Well, thank you for joining us.
You guys do a great job.
Thank
I
you.
miss seeing everyone, but it's a vital part of the city now. The cable's here to stay, and I know I've mentioned to you, I go to other communities or other states sometimes, and I put the local cable on. It's not the same. You do a great job.
Thank you for that, and thank you so much for joining us here tonight, and good luck.
Good night, Joe. We welcome to the program this evening incumbent State Senator John Keenan of Quincy, the Norfolk Plymouth District Senator, who is a candidate for re-election this evening. Senator, thanks for joining us. Good evening. And how are you now that the polls have closed?
I'm doing fine, thanks. How are you doing?
We're well here, thank you. Thanks for spending some time to chat with us during our coverage here at Quincy Access Television. You look well rested. Were you out and about today?
I was out and about. It was kind of, as like everything else this year, it was kind of strange. There weren't a lot of people holding signs. The polls, in terms of activity outside the polls, were pretty quiet. Obviously, there was a steady stream of voters, which was good.
Yeah, we just heard Joe Shea say that he thinks mail-in voting or early voting is here to stay. Do you agree with that?
I think so. And I think we'll get better at it each time. I think it's here to stay. People seem to like it. The numbers suggest that people really liked it. Plus the early voting, it gave people a lot of options. Certainly there's things that can be improved, and I'm sure the legislature and the local clerks will look to see where those improvements can occur and make sure they're put in place. And I want to say to all the clerks in the Norfolk and Plymouth District, in Quincy, Braintree, Abington, Rockland, and Holbrook, they did a great job. Going to the different polling places in the primary and now the final, they really did a great job. And as voters, we should all feel very comfortable and proud that our votes are truly going to count.
Senator, I know that your office has been fielding a lot of calls regarding the pandemic, people looking for pandemic relief.
We have. And it's gone in kind of stages. Early on, once the state, the restaurants and so forth closed down, it was a lot of service economy people who were calling, seeking assistance with their unemployment benefits. And those that hadn't traditionally or had not contributed to unemployment because they were in the gig economy or contractors, the state provided unemployment to them as well. And so that took up a lot of calls. Then it kind of shifted a little bit to housing, a little bit to food, a little bit to trying to get access to the registry of motor vehicles and other state services. And recently we have seen an uptick again in unemployment claims and people trying to get those processed. And we're hearing more about housing as well.
And what about the connection? We're all suffering during this pandemic, but the link between the pandemic and opioid use?
The numbers are not encouraging. We've seen a greater number of opioid overdose deaths, and it's people are not accessing the treatment that treatment services that we do provide for a couple of reasons. One, they just don't know where to turn. Two, they're afraid to go into an inpatient treatment program and a residential treatment program because of the virus situation, the pandemic. So They're out there more on the streets. They're finding it more difficult to access the services, and we've got to change the way that we deliver or reach out to people who are in need of services. They're there. We have to make sure now that we connect the people to the services. And I've been in conversations with the budget writers to make sure that we have appropriate funding. Oftentimes that funding is based on utilization rates, which are down. And so we don't want to budget at a rate that is lower than we know what's coming and what we'd like to see. So I've suggested that we do some sort of reserve account for behavioral health, mental health, and substance use, so that when those utilization numbers rise, as we do a better job of outreach, that we have the funding available.
Curious to get your take, John, on the governor's targeted rollbacks earlier this week, due to the rising numbers of coronavirus cases, and a fine line that he's trying to walk, obviously, between not, crashing the economy, but still trying to get a hold of this disease. Do you feel that that was an appropriate move?
It is a fine line. Something had to be done because our numbers were rising, not only in number of cases, but also in the number of hospitalizations and the number of deaths. They were all climbing, and number of people in ICUs climbing, not near where they were back in the spring, but they were on a trend that was not alarming, but certainly concerning. And we also found a couple of our hospitals in a situation where they were on surge, meaning that they were utilizing more resources to meet the demands of COVID. Something had to be done. I don't know whether the 9:30 closing will accomplish a whole lot. I don't know ultimately what that accomplishes. I wholeheartedly agree with the idea that people should be wearing masks. That seems to be the greatest defense to the virus. It is, in the grand scheme, a pretty minimal requirement for people. So that I agree with. The closing, I'm not sure. We'll see how that works out. But something had to be done. People were getting pretty lackadaisical in terms of doing the basics, washing your hands, keeping the distance, and wearing masks. And people are anxious to get out and about, but we've got to make sure that they do wear the mask. Again, that seems to be the best path here, and people weren't wearing them as much as they should. And I find it interesting that people get really upset about the requirement for wearing masks. And we're in a pandemic situation. And yet in normal times, you can't walk into a store barefooted and without a t-shirt or a shirt on. You just can't do it. And so I don't see that it's a really big step to go from, hey, you have to have something on your feet and you have to be wearing a shirt to go into a store, to say you have to wear a mask because we're in a pandemic. I don't think that's a big step. And hopefully people will do it voluntarily, and we'll get this pandemic under control again.
Well, Senator, I want to thank you for joining us here at Quincy Access Television tonight, and wish you well in this election.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. And I want to say just a couple things quickly, if I can. One, to the residents of the city of Quincy and to all the residents of Norfolk and Plymouth District, I thank you for the honor of serving. I don't know the results yet tonight. I'm hopeful that I'll get reelected. And please know that if I am, please pick up the phone, call my office, anything at all that we can do to help during these trying times. And in normal circumstances, please know that we're there. And thank you for the honor and the privilege of representing you. And then to you folks at QATV, I know Joe Shea just mentioned it as well. You do a great job and a great service for our community, particularly during these challenging times. So thank you for the work that you do. And together, we'll get word out on these important things that are going. And I'm optimistic that no matter what happens tonight, the local, the state, and the federal level, that we'll move forward. We have to come together as a nation and move forward, and I trust that we will.
Thank you, Senator. So great to see you, and we'll chat again. Thank you. You as well.
Take care.
There is a race for sheriff of Norfolk County, and we believe we have the Republican incumbent on the line with us now, or maybe not. We're trying to get our I's dotted and our T's crossed here when it comes to technicalities doing this virtual interview. We should mention, Mark, some folks have indicated that we're not able to provide numbers like we normally do during election night, and that, of course, is for multiple reasons, the pandemic being the primary one, but also the fact that ballots will be counted right up through Friday. They'll be accepted at the city clerk's office if they were postmarked by today, up until at least this Friday. So the actual numbers won't be available till at least then.
Well, we do have someone that is joining us to chat a bit, and that would be Les Gossel. He is from the Quincy Republican City Committee. So, Mr. Gossel, welcome. Thank you.
Mark and Joe, thank you for having me. How you doing, Joe? I haven't spoken to you in a while.
It has been quite a while. It's great to see you. I appreciate the opportunity to talk with you this evening as a representative of the Republican City Committee here in Quincy. If you could tell us a little bit about your impressions of this campaign, both nationally and here in Massachusetts.
Well, I think it's difficult to believe some of the early polls one way or the other. If you look at the crowds that have been showing up for Donald Trump in terms of the different, where thousands and thousands of people are showing up, and you see the rallies, whether by boat or by truck, and you see what's been showing up. You got to feel, as a Republican, as in favor of Donald Trump, you got to feel really good about what the outcome is going to be. We've been standing outside in Quincy on Adams Street, Quincy Shore Drive, and Furnaceburg Parkway, and a lot of people come by and they're beeping horns. I would say we got about 80% of the people beeping horns. We had a few people with their thumbs down, and a few people verbalizing their unhappiness in one way or another. But the majority of the people going by have been really positive. And so the sense you get is that it's going to be a positive outcome for Donald Trump tonight, or 2020, whatever the case may be.
How many registered Republicans are there in Quincy, Mr. Gossel?
Not enough to elect me as a senator back in 2016, if you remember. We are a minority group, but still the outcome has been relatively positive, more so than it was in 2016. We did this in 2016. The enthusiasm, even here in Quincy, was not as great as it is over the last couple of weeks, couple of months here. Enthusiasm was far greater, Joe, than it was in 2016. Because I was there in 2016, stood outside with the signs, and it's far great. I don't know if that enthusiasm transfers into votes. I don't know if that enthusiasm, transfers into who wins or who loses, but it was just really positive hearing it. It was really positive being part of it. And exactly how it turns out, we'll all find out together tomorrow.
Obviously, the issues out there, I'm sure that you have been hearing from folks, the pandemic, the economy, which was doing well until the pandemic hit. Those are really driving factors in this election. Would you agree?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And you hear shall we say, the news in terms of who's at fault in terms of the COVID-19. Could Donald done better? Some people say, oh, he could do. I think if you go up to the time of COVID-19 hit, you go up to February of this year, and you look at what's happening, I think Donald Trump has done something most politicians have not done. He's kept his word. We've had lower unemployment. We've had more jobs brought back from overseas. We definitely have, we have the support of the police department. I don't think Joe Biden have any police department supporting him. I think the military is stronger. I think that the person has kept his word in a lot of ways. When people ask me about Donald Trump, I quote or misquote something I heard a while ago. Someone else said this, so I apologize to the person who said it, but the quote is, your vote is not a Valentine's. A Valentine's is a statement or a confession of love for somebody. Your vote is really a chess move for what you believe is a better America for tomorrow, a better America for us, for our children and grandchildren. It's a chess move, it's not a statement of love. So for the people that have ill feelings about Donald because of his tweets or something else, I would ask you to close your eyes and think about what America means to you and what you want to see in America. And who do you think at this point could better deliver what you want to see for yourself and for your family and your children? And I think Donald has really done that. I think he really cares about the people and delivering a message for the, well, we can go into it item by item if you want, but the COVID-19 is obviously an issue. I'm not a doctor, as you guys know, but I do believe that somewhere along the way, 2 months, 3 months, 6 months down the road, there'll be a vaccine. And I think in some short order, 6 months from now or less, depending upon what you want to believe, there will be, the COVID-19 will be something in the history books. I think which lingers further on than that, and is not a timeline, is America, in terms of getting America back together in terms of the values that I think most of us would believe in. When I grew up as a kid, if I wanted something, it was get a job, work for it, earn it. No one was entitled to it just because, whatever the reason is. This idea that people now feel that they're entitled to, some people feel that they're entitled to something just because of something that happened in the past, is not the America that most of us grew up in. It's not the America that, this land was a land of opportunity by hard work and education, preservation, apply yourself. The land of opportunity wasn't a land that says, we're gonna milk and honey and we're just gonna give it to you. And I think that the question becomes is what you want to see for America. You want a sense of independence, a sense of pride in what we can accomplish. I think that that's what this president represents.
Well, I do want to bring up policing and safety, obviously a big concern, and defunding the police. What do you think needs to be done? Is it simply more money to be put into the direction of education?
No, I think the answer, if I was running for office, I would end up losing a lot of votes, but I'm going to answer what I really believe. If you look at individual cases that's taken place this past year in terms of the police officers, there was a record of most of those police officers having complaints against them, multiple complaints, misdemeanors and felonies. These police officers should not have been on the force as long as they have been. I think that there is a situation where, I hate to say it, but some of the unions, again, I'm not running for office, so I can say it, but I think part of the problem is that the unions are really very, very strong, and the police officers that have been acted out of character have been allowed to stay on the force, and they shouldn't have been. I think that something's got to happen where the unions don't necessarily have some of the force that they have today and maintain. I'm saying 98%, 97, 98%, 99% of the police officers are really good. You know, the guys and girls are here in Quincy. I know some of the people here in Quincy, and they're good cops, honest cops, caring cops. They care about the people. And the idea of somehow or other sort of putting this blanket on all the cops is somehow or other, they're all racist and all biased and all, I find that it hurts me. I find it wrong. I don't think it's true. There are bad cops out there. And I think that by an independent board, policing, whatever it takes, when there are multiple complaints against a cop, the cop should be dismissed from their service. And some of these things that have happened, if you go back to the history, some of these police officers have had a multiple record of misbehaving. And the question I ask is, why are they still on the force? And they shouldn't have been. So I think that this overreaction, this idea that some people would advocate defunding the police department, I mean, I'm not sure what that really means. Defunding the police department, I don't think that's a. If I ask you back to what America means, I'm going to ask and answer my own question. When I ask people that, I think that the fundamental belief by a lot of people is I want to wake up and feel safe. I want to be able to walk down the street. I want to feel safe. I want to feel good in my own community. I want a place where I could earn a good living, pay for my family, and enjoy my family. I think fundamentally it's a sort of a fundamental truth. I believe that to be a truth in terms of what most people really would advocate for in America. I want to wake up. I want to feel safe. I want to feel good. I can walk down the street. I want to believe in the police department. And I want to be able to earn a decent wage, an honest, decent wage for my family and be able to take care of them. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And the idea of sort of violating that by saying we're going to take some of the police something away from the police, I find it absolutely wrong. I know if I was running for office, I'd probably get the unions against me and no one in the union would vote for me. But I don't think the unions voted for me the first time. So it wouldn't be any different. Just
Well, appreciate
the opportunity to talk to you tonight, Mr. Gossel. I really do.
It was great for you to step in here at the last minute and share your thoughts and opinions. We appreciate it very much.
And thank you for having me. It was great.
It's our pleasure. Have a great evening and stay well.
Take care.
God bless America.
Thank you very much. We have Republican incumbent Norfolk County Sheriff Jerry McDermott on the line with us now, joining us during our live election coverage here on Quincy Access Television. Sheriff McDermott, good evening. Welcome. Thanks for joining us.
Well, he's there. We can see part of you. I don't know if you could tilt your computer screen down, Mr. McDermott. There we go. All right. Oh, almost. A little more.
This is live on the air camera adjustments.
Yeah, that's better.
That's better. How's that?
You need a couple of phone books. No, I think you're okay. I think you're doing okay.
We'll be all right. How are you guys
Thank you for
doing?
joining us.
Great. So Mark and Joe, thanks for having me. Let's see here. Get that off the screen. As you can imagine, things are way too early. Numbers are just starting to come in across the county. But first and foremost, I just want to say thank you to my supporters, my volunteers, my family, my friends, and all the supporters. Just incredible turnout today. And all throughout the campaign. I went around the county today. I started by voting in Westwood, and I probably hit 75% of the towns out of the 28. Just going around greeting voters, thanking my volunteers. I went up to my opponent, Pat McDermott's people, thanked them for standing out in the freezing cold too. It's a lot of work. When a candidate runs, it's not just a candidate, it's their whole family. It's their friends, it's their network, and everybody's anxious. And so I want to congratulate, I don't even know what the numbers are yet, but I'll congratulate Pat McDermott, his wife Tracy, his two beautiful kids, and all their volunteers for going out there and working hard. I mean, when you put your name on the ballot, it's a big thing to do, to put yourself out there. So, I've been doing this for a while and have served in the Boston City Council, and sometimes politics can be a blood sport, and it's easy to sit back and watch other people get in the arena. But I do want to tip my cap to my opponent, his family, his friends, his supporters. But most of all, I want to thank my team. Just incredible. I mean, I've said it before, I feel like George Bailey and It's a Wonderful Life. I mean, you feel the love from all the people that sacrifice their time. They give you not just their time and their financial contributions, but they're invested because they believe in you and they believe in the good programs and things that you're going to do. So I really count myself fortunate, and we'll see what the outcome is. Our fate is in the hands of the voters, and we'll see what they said.
Well, this has to be the first time that you have ever run against someone with the same last name.
That's correct. Closest I've ever had was McDermott versus McLaughlin, and that was over 10,000 votes cast in a 1993 city council race in Boston, and I came up short by 170 votes, I think it was. I was only 25 at the time, but you learn a lot of lessons along the way, and came back a couple years later, challenged him, and he bowed out of the race. But this has been a great turnout. I was out in Franklin, and they would just drive. The cars would just kept coming in Franklin. Same thing in Holbrook, Medway. Most of these precincts were very, very busy. I think the big question tonight, Joe and Mark, I think it'll be not just who voted in person today and what that tally is, but the big unknown is, the early ballots. And that's always something that, I didn't know which way that would cut because so many people voted early by mail-in ballot, and then they took advantage of the early walk-in voting, which began October 17 through October 30. And along the way, we kept building up a head of steam and momentum, and we got the endorsements of former mayor of Quincy, Bill Phelan, and retired Detective Captain Jimmy Coughlin. So that really kind of gelled things, and I think the race pivoted, and we certainly picked up a lot of steam. The question is, did the endorsements and the momentum come a little late after after all those mail-in ballots? I've heard a lot of people say they had already sent in their ballot and they wish they could change their vote. So I hope that's not a bad sign. But we're all anxious here at headquarters. I've got a team in the next room crunching numbers as we speak, and just trying to figure out how the night's going to play out. I think we may not know. It's about 10 minutes of 9. We may not know till about 10 o'clock. But some of the early read on it is Braintree looks very solid for us. I hope that stays true, but at least with the people who cast their ballots today, we're doing very well in Braintree. And I got a precinct in Quincy at the Squantum School, and we won there, which is, that's a good bellwether for Quincy, to win against a Quincy opponent. That's not easy. And I credit, again, my volunteers and all the hard work, all the standouts in the cold and the literature drops and, just everything they've invested. I'm really impressed by them.
Well, really appreciate your time tonight, Mr. McDermott. Thank you so much for joining us for our coverage, and get some rest.
I'll sleep this weekend, that's for sure. All right, guys, thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night. Believe we have with us incumbent 8th District Congressman Stephen Lynch of South Boston on the line. Congressman Lynch, thanks so much for spending some time with us. Good to see you again.
Hello, Joe. How are you, my friend?
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. Thanks for joining us here in our live coverage at Quincy Access Television. How are you feeling this election night?
Well, good. I like my chances. With all the support we got in Quincy in the primary, that was a great shot on the arm, and I'm hoping that we get similar results tonight. Hello, Mark. How are you?
Very good, Congressman. How are you?
Good, thank you. Good to be with you both.
Likewise. Congressman, I'm curious, folks have speculated that the economic stimulus package that's being held up in Washington is being held hostage until the results of this election are made clear. Do you think that's true?
Well, not on our part. We passed that bill, the HEROES Act, which is the stimulus bill, about 4 months ago. And in response, Senate Majority Leader McConnell said he's going to press the pause button instead. But since that time, we've lost probably 150,000 people from the coronavirus. So I just don't understand the rationale there. I think that the nature of the bill itself was really staying alive money, right? It was money to help with the vaccine development. It was to help with first responders, help with PPE, help with rental assistance and actually landlord assistance, and also a stimulus for people who are out of work, and also to small businesses. So it really was an all-purpose and all of the above approach to trying to deal with the pandemic. And quite unfortunate that we couldn't get the Senate to agree.
When talking about transportation, the MBTA was suffering budget drawbacks before. Now the pandemic hit, they're looking at potentially cutting ferry services, maybe some bus routes as well.
Yeah, actually, the general manager, Poftak, called me about that. I actually serve on the Transportation Committee in Congress. And we just passed, and I think it was probably about 7 months ago, we passed a major transportation bill and sent that over to the Senate. Lately, the Senate is the place where good ideas go to die, unfortunately. And so they did not take up our bill, and they did not propose an alternative. Sometimes if they're not happy with our bill, they'll come up with their own version or tweak ours or take out what they don't like and send it back. Anything like that would have helped the process, but instead they just refused to consider what we had suggested, which was surprising, because on our side, we actually worked with a lot of Republican members of the House to find out what they needed in their districts. So there were a lot of good things in there for Republican districts, and we thought that that would be a selling point over in the Senate, but apparently we were wrong. We even put in money for broadband, which is usually not put into the transportation bill. It's usually separate. That's a telecommunications bill. But because of the pandemic, we realized that a lot of rural areas, a lot of red state rural areas, did not have the ability to have their kids go to school with remote learning because they did not have the broadband access. So we put that in really to help those Republican rural districts in the Midwest and in the far West and in the South, thinking that that would be a plus for them. However, that didn't work either. So I'm hopeful that if President Biden is able to win tonight, he has said during his campaign that that's a major priority for him, getting a big transportation bill done. I've talked to him personally about it. We have over 64,000 bridges that are structurally deficient right now in the United States, just, disasters waiting to happen. So we certainly, look at what we're trying to do in Quincy with the MBTA stations and busing people around stations while we're fixing them up. The ferries are extremely important. We've saved them a few times. I know that back when Governor Deval Patrick was in office, he was looking at cutting them back as well. We were able to provide some additional funding, and he reversed his decision and actually helped us reestablish the ferries. I think Governor Baker is of the similar mind. He realizes that really takes cars off the road. It's good environmentally. It's good from a quality of life standpoint. I have some staff members who work for me that live in Hull, live in Hingham, and so they take the ferry across, and except for maybe 1 month out of the year, it's fairly pleasant to take that ferry, and it's important to my district. So we're going to fight like hell to keep it, and I think that there's a solution there. As I mentioned to General Manager Poftak, there are some areas in capital improvements later on down the line that we had slated for the inner city in Boston that could be delayed because we're still hashing through some of the ideas there. We could cut some of the longer range projects and move that money to pay for ferries and for some of the immediate service that people are relying on each and every day today. So it may be necessary to look at some of those capital projects that we have slated for the future and just put those on hold while we keep the ferries and other services going for people who need them, especially during this pandemic. People are dealing with enough heartache and inconvenience right now. There's got to be a way for us to mitigate some of the inconvenience that people are experiencing.
Do you think, Congressman, that if President Trump wins re-election, there will be a break in the deadlock in Washington? It'll be 4 more years. Do you think there'll be a shift in power in Congress to move legislation forward? Do you think that this fracture will continue?
I've had a very difficult time anticipating what this president might do. I have to admit, he's very unpredictable, even from day to day. We were trying to negotiate with him over the HEROES Act, and then he walked away from the bargaining table. He decided he did not want to talk about it anymore, and then I gather he took so much heat that he changed his mind a couple of days later, and then came back and then blamed us for not negotiating. I just don't understand it. I hope we get back to somewhat of a normal, I would call normal, relationship between the House and the Senate and the presidency. This has been very disruptive at so many levels. To have a president who takes such liberties with the truth and with the Constitution. It's really troubling. I don't like to be partisan, but and look, I worked pretty closely with George W. Bush when I first got to Congress. We disagreed on a fair number of things, but it was always a give and take of ideas. And I honestly felt that he had in his heart the best interest of the American people. And I don't necessarily, I'm not convinced of that right now. I think the president has this president has a much different view of democracy and of our place in the world. I really do think that. And I'd be very happy if President Biden were successful. I've been working the state of Wisconsin for him, remotely, of course, with a lot of the labor community, trying to persuade them to vote for President Biden, because I think, first of all, he's a good and decent man. I was the first member of the House of Representatives, 435 members, to endorse Vice President Biden. And that's when we had 19 Democratic candidates. So I felt he was the only good, really, really, really good choice, in terms of moving, first of all, being successful, and I was right about that, and then going up against President Trump, because the president, had all the advantages of incumbency, but people knew Joe Biden, and they know him today. So I think that might be what carries him through.
Well, appreciate your time and the opportunity to speak with you and let you share your thoughts with the folks here in Quincy this evening. Congressman, thank you very much.
Oh, thank you. God bless Quincy. Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Mark. Be safe.
Thank you, Congressman.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. You as well. Thank you very much. Next up on our coverage this evening is Richard Stady, also a candidate for one of the 3 Norfolk County Commissioner seats. Mr. Stady, good evening. Welcome. Thank you for joining us here at Quincy Access Television. Good to chat with you.
Hey, how are you?
We're well, thank you. How are you? How are you? I should ask after this quite different campaign.
I am actually, frankly, a little cold, a little tired. I spent a lot of time outside today, visiting various towns, and it was quite chilly. It looks like the weather's going to warm up in a couple of days, but it didn't help us out today. But all things considered, glad it's over. It's been a long run, been an exciting run, but glad to have it finally finished.
I know part of your platform was exploring renewable energy. Climate change, renewable energy seems like the right way.
Yes, certainly I'm a proponent for renewable energy sources in the county wherever it's feasible. That being said, there's certainly areas to explore that could be used, for example, on the roofs or with carports or things like that. But I think what I'd like to do, hopefully, if I'm moving forward, is to have a good assessment of the different facilities in the county in terms of their structural abilities and feasibilities to sustain those things, and then try to implement, where possible, the use of solar power.
I know courthouses, the county commissioner is in charge of courthouses throughout the Norfolk district. Quincy's courthouse is looking for a new spot. What's the status of the other courthouses within Norfolk County?
Well, they're all pretty much, in need of some kind of repair. I think that, again, one of the things I spoke about, and I think we all pretty much agree on, is the need for like a capital improvement, planned program improvement. We're actually undergoing a study, best management practices, and another study is taking a look at the county as a whole and the operations. And one of the things they're going to do is something I've been stating, politely, is that we need to have a capital program with a program in place that will do certain repairs to all the buildings on a regular basis. Just like a municipality will have that. You have a capital planning committee. We should have something like that in place for the county. Take a look at all of them. And I'm not going to say like Stoughton needs it more than Rentham, or perhaps the Dedham Superior Court needs it more than Brookline. Let's take a look at them all, have an outside assessment done by a professional, and then make that decision.
Curious, earlier this evening we had a chance to chat with Heather Hamilton, another candidate for one of the county commissioner seats, and she mentioned that the CARES Act funding, the federal CARES Act funding that came into the county, Norfolk County, was given to the state to distribute, as opposed to in Plymouth County, where the county commissioners actually distributed that. Do you think that was a good move or a bad move?
It depends. It really depends. I think the idea was to have it for the use by the local cities and towns. That was the intent. That being said, Plymouth commissioners took the initiative, shall I say, politely, got the money, and now they're in the process of, if you say, redistributing that money, but according to perhaps their criteria and not a state criteria. I should note that we did on our own, Norfolk County applied for some CARES reimbursements as it relates to changes we had to do to implement, safe protocols and things like that, but nothing of the magnitude of what Plymouth got in terms of that funding. Yeah.
I know exploring different avenues of revenue, a revenue stream into the county commissioner's department is something that you would like to do.
Yes, Mark. As again, I think we're all going to be facing some severe fiscal problems looking ahead in the next year. We all know that on the municipal level, most towns use free cash, and we also have been told that local aid will not be diminished for this year. That being said, looking ahead, there's no guarantee local aid won't be cut and other cuts won't be affected across the board. So it behooves us to look at alternative revenue. And one of the things that ties in to my idea or suggestion about renewable energy is the fact that you can enter into agreements with solar companies and you can generate additional money from the leasing of land or from the electricity that they generate, and know that directly or indirectly can result in income for the county. And that's what I think makes it so attractive.
Appreciate your time tonight, Mr. Stady. Great to chat with you, and thank you for making some time for us here at QETV.
Okay. Well, thank you, guys. It's been great working with you guys all the way through, and hopefully we'll talk again in some other way, right?
Yes. Yes. Thank you.
All right. You're welcome. Have a good evening. Go warm up now. If you are just joining us here at Quincy Access Television, thank you for providing you live election coverage as it applies to the local and the state level and the county level, as you just saw in some cases, and also from different party affiliations, Republican and Democratic. And we are welcoming from the Quincy Democratic City Committee, Alicia Gardner. Alicia, good evening.
Good evening, Joe. Hi, Mark. Nice to see you both.
Good to see you as well.
Thanks for spending some time, Alicia. It has been a while, absolutely. And hopefully not too much longer we'll be able to get in person again. But in the meantime, this is a great alternative. How are you feeling this evening? I see you're all dressed in your blue.
You better believe it. That's the color, royal blue. Royal blue, and we're extremely excited and very confident that our next president will be Joe Biden and our next vice president will be Kamala Harris.
You've been involved in elections in the past. Certainly, you've probably never seen a presidential election. I can't remember seeing a presidential election like this one.
No. Unprecedented in so many ways. The ups and downs of it, of 2020 has just been such an incredible, different year. But I really feel that we'll get back to some type of normalcy, and that's starting with electing Joe Biden president, and we'll hopefully have a more normal year in the year ahead.
What did the Democratic Committee here in Quincy, Alicia, do to help the Biden campaign?
Well, I want to first thank two individuals in particular three actually, from our committee who has worked tirelessly on behalf of the Biden campaign, and the city committee who's worked tirelessly on behalf of all of the Democratic nominees on our ticket. Ron Akabuchi, was a regional director who was instrumental in helping us. We had an incredible virtual breakfast where we had both Kamala Harris and Joe Biden via video speak to our members. It was an incredible morning, a lot of energy. Larry Cretion, who has been on the phones week in and week out for the Biden-Harris campaign, making those calls into other states. Massachusetts was at the top of the list in phone banking throughout the country and trying to identify, number one, and then get out the vote for Democrats within the battleground states. And that's a lot to be proud of, that Massachusetts has contributed greatly in electing our next president. And I want to thank the members of my committee, Mike Berry, who we've done a standout every Saturday from the weekend after Labor Day till tonight, on behalf of all of our Democratic nominees, holding all of their signs in support of them, and being sure that everybody is voted up and down the Democratic ballot. So I believe we've really worked hard in supporting our nominees, and we look forward to having them all elected.
Do you feel that the Affordable Care Act is on the ballot this time around?
Oh, most definitely. It's in such jeopardy. Although the current president has no plan, but anybody with a pre-existing condition, and to have that stripped away after the success of the Affordable Care Act after all these years, is extremely worrisome for so many Americans. And every time we ask, there is no plan. Yet he's going to have a far more an improved plan than what's on the books now. Can it be improved? Absolutely. But we should be proud of the fact that Americans can now get affordable health care, which is not a privilege. It is a right. And I hope we'll move forward under the Biden administration.
Curious, Alicia, the governor today said that he blanked his ballot for a vote for president. He didn't vote for Joe Biden or President Trump. What do you make of that?
He has to be true to himself. He is a Republican, so I can appreciate him having a very difficult time voting for a Democrat, yet he can't vote for his own Republican. And I wish that more governors like him had a backbone that would say the same thing. But they all fall in line because power can be such an aphrodisiac, and he has stood up to that. I do appreciate that. I had a similar experience back, a while ago, and not being able to vote for a Democratic governor. I'm not going to tell you who or when, but I couldn't cross the line and go on the Republican side. But in good conscience, I couldn't vote for the Democratic nominee either. So I can appreciate where he was coming from.
Just taking a look at the questions, question 2 specifically, and rank voting. Did you find that there was any confusion with that? What did you, I suppose, find out from people you were associated with regarding rank voting and what that would mean?
Yeah, and unfortunately, regarding both questions, although question number 1 was the most financed question we've ever had in Massachusetts, which I heard today, which I found interesting. They were, particularly question number 2 was overshadowed, I think, by the presidential race in particular. And, during our primary, our senatorial race. I think that people weren't quite sure what rank choice voting was. and whether or not it was a good thing. We had it many years ago, and it's coming back. And the point was, instead of voting for the lesser of two evils, you now have more of a choice on who you vote for. So I'd be curious as to how that question is going to fall out, shall I say, amongst the public, and how they feel, if ranked choice is their choice over you're in or you're out type of voting.
And I'm sorry, how far back was it when it was in place?
If I remember, Mark, and this is before I was able to vote, which I began voting in 72, and voted for George McGovern, and we were the only state in the union that year that actually voted for that won a state for the Democratic nominee against Richard Nixon. I'm going to tell you, it was in the late 50s, if I remember my history in Quincy, that I remember seeing spreadsheets, 3 feet across, because we had choice rank voting back in the day. Obviously, due to technology, it's not going to appear that way anymore, and it will be far more efficient. But I believe in the city of Quincy, we did have that choice back in the late 50s, early 60s.
Well, it looks like ranked choice voting probably will not be passing. According to the Associated Press, 54% of the voters right now are saying no to ranked choice voting. Not sure about the right to repair, question number 1. I have a feeling that one is going to pass just based on folks that I've talked to and polls that I've read. But as far as question 2, it's the no's are in the lead right now.
Yeah. It's interesting. So people do pay attention, because a lot of times people like to vote in the affirmative, even if they're not quite sure what the affirmative means. But because, they want to be positive. But so they've been listening in regards to the ranked choice voting and not feeling comfortable with that type of a voting option at this time.
Sure. And it looks like I was right, about 74% right now, yes, on question 1, yeah. Curious, Alicia, just a quick last question about the early and the mail-in voting. Do you think it is here to stay?
Oh, you know what? It was, we first began it 4 years ago during the last presidential election, and it was a phenomenal success. And, due to the predicament we're all in during this pandemic, it couldn't have worked out better for so many residents to be having the ability to mail in their ballot or early vote. I think it was an outstanding success. And the way Quincy ran their operation, it doesn't get any better. Notch.
Great. Well, appreciate the time to talk to you this evening. Thank you very much. And I know you're going to be up late counting numbers and watching polls for sure.
Go Dems. And thank you for having me this evening.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. You as well. Yep. Good night now. You as well.
Joining us in studio momentarily is the the Democratic challenger for Sheriff of Norfolk County, Pat McDermott. There he is.
There he is.
Hello, Pat.
Hello, Pat. How are we doing tonight? Everybody doing well?
How are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. It's been a great day. It's been a great campaign season. It's been a great election, and I love the fact that Alicia Gardner was on right before me, my pal. So many elections that Alicia and I have been on over the last 20 years, and many of those elections I haven't been on the ballot. I'm usually behind the scenes working for a candidate. So Alicia and I have always been kind of the go-to people for the Democratic Party in days like today. And I kind of missed that aspect of being behind the scenes and being the person that was in front of the scenes today. As exhilarating as that was, I appreciate everybody that I saw today.
Well, did you see at the beginning of the program, we ran a piece from the polls, and your daughter actually was interviewed.
You know, Alana told me that she was interviewed today, and she did give me the heads up that you had said hello, and I was thrilled. You know, my family has sacrificed so much over the last 2 years, and really throughout my whole political life. You know, there's always something that Dad had to run to do, or you know, husband had to do for politics or doing something. And certainly this last couple of years, and specifically this year alone under COVID and the strain that caused, to know that my family stood tall for me as I knew they would. And both of my kids were out holding signs with their friends today, talking to QATV, knowing that my wife had my back 110% and going around giving out our goodie bags to everybody, hand warmers for folks that were cold. That's what it comes down to in any campaign is the support that your family provides for you is just something that you can be just ever so grateful for. And I'm blessed to have them.
Yours, Pat, really was a really grassroots campaign, you know, running for a sheriff from, you know, the current Register of Probate for Norfolk County. Anything you would do differently? Any regrets this evening?
You know what? You know, I made a decision a while ago, before I decided to run for sheriff, that this was likely going to be my last term as Register of Probate anyways. I didn't tell anybody that, but, you know, after serving 18 years, looking at a prospect of running for another term, I thought it was time for me to step aside, much like I did after 3 terms on the Quincy City Council. I could have easily run for a 4th term back in the early 2000s, but I had done what I wanted to do. Same with Register of Probate. I campaigned on a robust platform of access to justice issues and providing robust programs in the family court. And we had done so many things, and I felt very accomplished there that it was time to let somebody else take a look at the probate court and to see what other prospects were available for me. So when the sheriff's race presented itself, when Sheriff Bellotti was given the opportunity to be president of Quincy College, you know, once again, you meet with your family, your friends, and you make those early decisions. I think we got in early. We were the first. I think I was the first candidate to officially get in the race, other than the acting sheriff who was appointed. But, you know, in terms of the way that this campaign moved, and you said, Joe, about the grassroots effort. I mean, I'm a product of the grassroots campaign. Every campaign I've run on, it's about individual one-on-one access to the voter. As much as I put my message together of prevention, intervention, education, and hope, creating an expansive vision for public safety across Norfolk County, a new way to look at how our criminal justice system works. It was about individual discussions. And I'll tell you, the challenges that we had this year under COVID-19, you know, didn't afford the candidates an opportunity to really do what we normally do, is get out and talk to the voters on a wide scale. So obviously we took advantage of the opportunity to reimagine a campaign in a COVID-19 environment. We found the benefits of Zoom like everybody else did, and there was a different way to connect with people. And I think our message resonated throughout the county. And certainly the primary was a tight primary race. I had 2 very great opponents in Bill Phelan and Jim Coughlin. And you know, moving forward to the final, we just didn't stop. And with a campaign committee that I had in place, I was truly blessed. With my campaign senior staff, as well as the volunteers, I felt solid momentum in this race, and no regrets at all. I mean, I wish I had $1 million. I wish I was able to send out more mailings, do more ads, all kinds of stuff. But you know, you have to work within the confines of the budget that you have, and the support mechanism you have, and you put your best foot forward. We did that, and I'm proud of the race we ran.
And what changes were you looking for in the sheriff's office?
Well, you know what? I think Mike Bellotti put together a pretty good foundation for the sheriff's office. I think, you know, when you switch over from just a strictly corrections version of how to run a jail to more programs and focusing on the inmate, I think that's something that I'm looking to expand upon. I think we really need to do a stem to stern review of all the programs. Lots of great programs that Sheriff Bellotti put in place, but we really need to find out what works and what doesn't work. I truly believe that we put together the vision of prevention, intervention, education, hope. That's a theme, but within each of those provisions kind of talks about exactly what we want to change. And incarceration, it to me, isn't the solution, especially at the county level. When we're dealing with crimes of people serving up to 2.5 years in the House of Correction, the vast majority of people that are serving sentences, there's mental health issues, there's addiction issues, there's a root cause that we need to uncover as to why these crimes are being committed. If we can solve those smaller issues, well, they're actually the big issues that are underlying the crime, I think you see a crime rate go down, you see recidivism go down, and that's what I want to focus on. I really want to focus on getting a real hard number on what is our recidivism rate, what is the revolving door scenario that's going on at the Norfolk County facility. I want to make it a model for the Commonwealth of Massachusetts and a model for our nation on how we reduce that recidivism rate on these lower offenses. I think we can do it. I know I have the team in place, and hopefully the voters will speak today and give me that opportunity for the next 2 years, because I'm fulfilling that's the challenge here, is I'm fulfilling the last 2 years of Sheriff Bellotti's term, and then a real focus on that 6-year term come in 2022.
That's right. It's a special election, actually, that you're in this evening to fill out the remainder of that term. We are being told, according to the AP and WBUR right now, that you are up 70 to 30% with a 23% of precincts reporting. So right now, it looks like a healthy lead, Pat.
It is. It's always, it's nerve-wracking until I see the actual numbers themselves, and there's always election night jitters. I mean, that's a nice, comfortable lead, but like anything else, I want to see those hard numbers coming out of the actual clerk's offices. Sometimes, as much as I revere our press and our reporting, sometimes we don't get all the things right. But I want to make sure that we have the right numbers in place before we make any kind of declaration one way or the other. And no matter what, though, at the end of the day, to me today is something that I think all of our voters, our electorate, our community, our county can be very proud of. This was a real great exercise in democracy today, from the top of the ballot right to the bottom of the ballot where you found me. But this is what it was all about. This is what elections are supposed to be: massive turnouts, massive participation, engagement of the issues, and someone wins, somebody doesn't win. But at the end of the day, the winner should be the people of Quincy, the people of Norfolk County, the people of the United States of America.
Well, I want to thank you for joining us here this evening, and of course, wish you well.
Thank you very much, Mark. Thank you, Joe. Hope to see you again soon. Take care.
Thank you. You as well. Hopefully in person next time as well. Good night, Pat. Thank you very much. Watching Quincy Access Television's live coverage of election 2020. And Mark, it's been quite a different night, but here in the studio with you and having our candidates live via teleconference, and we were able to get it done.
Well, indeed, and the slight pause there was only a result of the way we need to do things nowadays. I'm trying to catch you from the corner of my eye to not speak over you because of the way we have to be positioned here in the studio. There's a shot of us in
Hi,
the studio. Mark! But, certainly under the direction of our executive director, Jonathan Caleri, and our engineer, Christopher Potter, and Michael Jarvie, we were able to bring you this program tonight. And of course, Carol Themin, who arranged for all of these interviews to be part of the election night coverage.
And it's not over yet. we do have one final candidate to chat with this evening, and of course there is a race for the U.S. Senate seat here in Massachusetts, and we want to welcome Republican candidate Kevin O'Connor to the program. Joined us back in the primary and is here again this evening. So Mr. O'Connor, thank you so much. Really appreciate the opportunity to talk to you tonight.
Joining me is Republican candidate for U.S. Senate, Kevin O'Connor. Kevin, welcome. Thank you for joining me.
Well, thank you for having me.
Great to have you here on Election Day. I want you to, as we're waiting for numbers to come in, I do want to talk about really your platform and what got you involved in politics.
So my platform is common sense. My opponent is a career politician. He's been in Washington for 44 years and really has very little to show for it, and has increasingly moved toward the politics of polarization, divisiveness. He's hyper partisan. I come at this as a father of 4 boys, a husband. I've been a small business owner, and I'm a lawyer. So I understand the law and the Constitution, and I understand how to get things done. I've represented a lot of small businesses and community-based organizations over the course of my 30-year career. And I have a record of working with people, building coalitions and teams, and resolving differences between sides to get things done for my clients. And my clients, as a senator, will be the people of Massachusetts. I'll represent every inch of Massachusetts with energy.
And I know with that said, you obviously support term limits.
Yes, 2 terms. So Senator Markey is sort of proof positive, 44 years, and we're going to give him from his 44th year to his 50th year, a half century in Washington. And again, so little to show for it. We need new blood. There is just an inevitable benefit having new blood, fresh perspectives. We have so much talent in Massachusetts. There's plenty of people who can do this job, and new blood will bring new energy and new relationships, new collaboration.
I know very important is safe neighborhoods. That's part of your platform as well. And that leads me to you are an opponent of defunding the police. So talk about that if you could.
It goes back to common sense. We all know that all successful organized activity begins with safety. So our police are what keep us safe. Same thing with the immigration services. We have to have rules. We have to make sure that people treat each other respectfully, and the crime is down. We need to protect our especially our most vulnerable populations from crime. My opponent wants to defund the police, and he's been vilifying police officers, trying to divide us against our police officers. I reject that politics. I support the police, and I think if we do that, we're smart and we listen to all groups, we can bring our community together and take our policing to the even better levels than it already is at.
Well, so would you support additional training, perhaps?
Yes. So we have the benefit with improved technology, with improved understanding that the mental health of officers can help optimize their performance. So we want to take technology, we want to take best practices in terms of data gathering and training, and we want to take our understanding of the connection between mental health and performance and bring all that together. We can do next generation, best ever policing. But the police in Massachusetts, everyone should understand, are national leaders, and they serve our communities exceptionally well. Senator Markey has vilified them during this campaign. It's totally wrong, and it's time for a change.
Let's talk also about climate change. You don't support the Green New Deal. So talk about what you would support and what you'd like to see.
I don't support the Green New Deal because it's not common sense. It's totally unfeasible. Even Joe Biden said it would bankrupt America. Senator Markey talks about it creating jobs. Senator Markey's never worked a day in the private sector, and he has no sense whatsoever how to create a job. What the Green New Deal would do, it would turn us 100% to renewable energy, which comprises about 5% of our energy currently. It would lead to rolling blackouts, grid shutdowns, and skyrocketing energy bills for the families of Quincy. It would be terrible. My plan is along the lines of Project Warp Speed. What we would do is intensively invest in research and development for reduced carbon carbon-free and carbon capture energy sources, all types. We would send that money to the greatest research institutions in the world, which are here in Massachusetts, University of Massachusetts, MIT, Harvard, BU. They would get the money, and we would accelerate the development of solutions for technological solutions to capture climate, to bring us to climate neutrality as soon as possible, and then license that technology to the private sector. Really like what's going on with Project Warp Speed. We can do it if we're smart about it. Senator Markey's top-down plan would devastate our economy, and it's totally hopeless as a matter of technology.
And lastly,
He didn't even vote for it, by the way. Senator Markey offered the Green New Deal, had a big press conference, and then he was afraid to vote for it. He voted presence. So only in Washington can you be afraid to vote for your own bill and then claim it's somehow an achievement.
And as we close, I just want to touch on jobs and obviously the importance of jobs in any economy. Obviously, COVID-19 has put a stress on that nationwide.
Yes, jobs, it's about jobs, jobs, jobs. And small businesses provide half of our jobs in Massachusetts. Senator Markey's a job killer. He wants massive tax increases, $4 trillion in tax increases, and he wants massive spikes in energy bills. The combined effect would be to crush small business. I'll be the one who will stand up for small business owners in terms of simplifying regulations, keeping taxes fair, and providing the PPP and loan programs that we need to get small businesses through to the other side. We can do this. We can use the lessons learned from COVID-19 and create a stronger economy if we're smart about it.
Well, Mr. O'Connor, I want to thank you for joining us here at Quincy Access Television. As we wait for the votes to come in, I wish you well. And once again, thank you for joining me here for this interview.
Thank you for having me.
So we certainly want to thank all of the participants this evening that have taken time to share their thoughts about the campaigns that they have run and the direction that they would like to take various positions, various seats, and basically what they felt really needs to be done and what they heard from voters. As we had begun this journey here this evening, because it truly is a journey, election night coverage, we did start with an at the polls piece so folks could get some sense of the activity at the polls. And I know from someone that has covered polls for many years, the activity today was less than what I expected, but maybe it was less than what I expected because of the amount of voting that was done prior to Election Day, whether it be mail-in ballots or early voting. I do, again, want to thank that everyone that has worked here at the QATV studios to get the election results or the interviews to you. But as I mentioned, election results, we do have some Quincy numbers that we will share with you, and I will turn now the program over to my colleague, Joe Catalano.
Well, Mark, thank you. We do have some unofficial numbers we should point out. These are unofficial numbers from the city clerk's office here in Quincy. Of course, mail-in ballots that were postmarked by today will be accepted at City Hall through Friday, so those will still have to be added to these numbers. But again, preliminary unofficial numbers for the race for president here in Quincy will tell you that Joe Biden, Kamala Harris earning almost 66% of the vote. Donald Trump, Mike Pence at 31% of the vote. Again, these are unofficial. And right now it looks like about 72% turnout here in Quincy. So Nikki Crispa was predicting about a 75% turnout. So that's pretty close, I will say. So, and again, these are not final, so that could still rise. We just heard from Republican candidate for Senator, Kevin O'Connor, and we can tell you that here in Quincy, incumbent Ed Markey earned 66% of the vote, Kevin O'Connor at 30% of the votes so far. We should caveat that. In the race for 8th District Congressman, incumbent Democrat Stephen Lynch earning over 72% of the vote here in Quincy, and a challenger independent Jonathan Lott with over 17.5%. So obviously the incumbent with a very strong lead there for the 8th District Congressional seat. There were other races as well. The senator for the Norfolk Plymouth District, the incumbent Senator John Keenan, earning over 63% of the vote. The challenger, independent candidate Alexander Mendez at 26% of the vote. And again, that's just here in Quincy. There were no contestant candidates for the other state representatives, actually. They all ran unopposed this year. There was a race, of course, for the Norfolk County Sheriffs, and we'll see if we can scroll down. Bear with me as we scroll down and find that race for you. Oh, before we do that, we have a county commissioner's race as well here in Norfolk County. So Joe Shea earning almost 34% of the vote. Richard Stady, who you heard from earlier, a little over 10%, and Heather Hamilton, also a little over 10%. So only a couple of hundred votes between Richard Stady and Heather Hamilton. And that's again for the Norfolk County Commissioner's race. We'll see if we can bring up the sheriff's race for you.
And the sheriff's race is on the screen.
Good. And as you can see, the Republican Jerry McDermott at 28.5%, and Pat McDermott, who you just heard from, the Democratic challenger, at almost 64% of the vote right now, and that is, again, just here in Quincy. And again, the turnout here in Quincy, a little over 71% so far, with unofficial results tabulated over at City Hall. And there were two ballot questions, of course, as you may recall. We talked about earlier the Right to Repair, so-called Right to Repair Act. Question 1 here in Quincy, yes, 69%, no, just a little over 24%. Looks like that will probably pass handily throughout the state, according to the polls that I have read and heard about. Question 2, the ranked choice voting, and that one here in Quincy, pretty close right now. Yes at almost 44%, no at almost 49%. So that one could tip either way, even here in Quincy. Not sure about the state numbers right now, but we'll see how that pans out. Those are the numbers that we have for you from City Hall, where I'm guessing it's a very busy place right now in the city clerk's office.
We should mention that these results that we just delivered will be on our bulletin board pages, so folks can, as soon as we sign off, they'll be able to revisit those numbers once again.
Absolutely, and we invite you to tune in to AM Quincy tomorrow morning, beginning at 7 a.m. for more election coverage and election news for you as it relates here to Quincy and the South Shore. We look forward to bringing that to you then. Mark, it's been great to be with you this evening, and appreciate the work behind the scenes here as well to bring our viewers this live coverage here from our studios.
Yes, thank you, Joe, for joining me. Always informative and I would say entertaining, but entertaining in the sense that you never know what to expect when you do something a different way, and certainly tonight has been. But great work by the production crew to get this, I think, critically important program to you.
Absolutely, and with an historic election now behind us, we're happy to have been a part of it and to be able to bring it to the folks here in Quincy. From all of us here at Quincy Access Television, we want to wish you a very happy and healthy evening.